What is it about film that attracts you?
Because I never went to film school, right? So it was baptism by fire when I was first introduced to the Hong Kong film world. And in Hong Kong at that time in the 80s, nobody worked with a script. A script was almost unheard of. If a director comes to you by a week, you would be filming, you know, and you would get onto the set that day and they would say, okay, these are your lines. And then the biggest problem I had, I didn't read Chinese. You know, I was brought up where Bahasa and English were my first languages, and so Chinese was not. So I couldn't read it. Well, it didn't matter at that time because they kept changing the dialogue. So, and then I couldn't really speak Cantonese very well. And in my first movie, fortunately, they had to change the dialogue so often. We would be told to just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, because when they were editing and they were reading, I never done my own film for about 10 years in my career. Then you go to, when you're watching the film, you go, so that was what she was saying to him. And then, you know, the understanding of what was going on in the film, because it was, you know, it was happening through the editing, through the filming, the whole process. So it helped me when I was learning very hard. Then I was very blessed because I joined a new film company called D&B, and I was a newcomer. So by my second film, they said, you know, is there something you would like to try? My first movie was Yeoh versus Damsel. They used to have great titles, you know, in those days. It was a Samuel Hall movie with George Lam, and it was a typical action comedy film where the boys were the ones that did all the action, and the girls were the damsel in distress waiting to be rescued. So when I was watching, and I realized that all this action that Samuel, because he was a director, the stunt coordinator, and the actor, which is quite normal in the Hong Kong film. So, and I thought it is so similar to dance, because it's like choreography, dance, rhythm, learning, and then finding a partner who's able to do the whole procedure with you. So in my second film, I boldly say, I would like to try action. And they looked at me and go, are you sure? Are you serious? Do you not understand what it's about? I said, you've got nothing to lose, right? If it doesn't work out, you can stick me back into the same box. Long hair, you know, the damsel in distress. So we tried our first action movie, and fortunately it worked out quite well. But that was a lot of bruising along the way.
You've been injured so many times. I have a list. I don't know if I can go through it, but it's like knee surgery, dislocated shoulder, cracked rib, cracked vertebrae, ruptured artery in your neck, and you're afraid of heights.
And so it's terrible. I get stage fright, I have a fear of heights, I'm claustrophobic, I am no action hero, okay?
Is there anything that you want to do on set? Is there anything that you will not do?
Nudity. I have too many little ones out there, and my parents, I don't think they would like to see me do that. No, I don't think I can handle it. That's the short of the matter.
You talked before about wanting not to be in this pretty box when you were talking.
No, I do want to be pretty.
No, you are. You don't have to want to be. You are.
When we're doing the actions, make sure I get my right side.
But you've been, you know, you're lauded for your beauty. You've been a skincare ambassador, and you are stunning, I must say. But I just want to know, how have you navigated around the boxes that people might have wanted to put you in during your career? Action hero as opposed to romantic lead, or your gender being, you know, in a box you can't be an action hero, or your nationality, or your age. How have you been able to navigate around those boxes and create the kind of career that you have?
You convince people. You have to work very hard at it. I remember when I first went to Hollywood, you know, when you're doing the rounds. In fact, it was Terrence Chang who called me and said, you know, you're enjoying a great career in Hong Kong. why don't you come over, to America? And when you're very complacent, you're having such a really wonderful time, you go, that's far away, and it's a completely new market. And to be honest, at that time, Hollywood was really concerned about Hollywood. They weren't concerned about Asia or Southeast Asia because our box office was so minimal to them. So they were not, apart from the people who loved Asian films, in general, there was not a big lot of Hollywood producers or agents, especially agents who knew what was going on in Asia. So I remember going there and taking my first couple of meetings. The first thing they always said to me was like, wow, you speak English, it's not bad. So I would look at him and go, well, it was a long flight, it was a 13-hour flight, so I learned on the way. And then they would say, oh, Malaysia, oh, Japan? And I go, oh boy. Did you ever learn geography when you went to school? So it was a process. They were a little condescending, it was like, oh yeah, why would you want okay. But it was important as well, I came to realize, because I was getting a little too complacent in Asia. And it was good to give me a kick in the butt and say, there's so many things for you to learn out there, and you should open your eyes, be more humble, go there and, start from square one. It was like going back to kindergarten, trying to persuade them. It happened in a couple of movies, yes. The movie that you would have seen here that I did would be with Jackie Chan, because Police Story 3 got picked up by Miramax and it was released in the general audience. And fortunately, Jackie is such a big star, so I tagged along and managed to get like a few minutes of fame.
And not just a few minutes. I wanted to ask about the lady, because I heard somewhere that actually before the role was offered to you, you pursued the role. You found out, through the grapevine that they were doing this movie and you were very passionate about playing this role. You've done biopics before, you've played real people before. What's the difference between preparing for a role that where the person is still living, or where the person is very strong in the audience's mind, in their memory, as opposed to someone like a Bond girl?
I'm very proud of the Bond thing, you can walk into them and say, I'm a Bond girl. But the lady was truly a very, very special experience, journey, not just as a movie, but a personal journey as well. When I first heard about it, in the grapevines you hear producers say, oh yes, we've got someone and we're really looking into hoping to make this film. And I suddenly went, I can't believe it. How come we never thought about that? And so I told my agent, please, if you like your job, go out and find it, because it is mine. So fortunately for him, he did it. And then we discovered there were two groups that were trying to make the same subject matter, one in America and one in England. And I met with both of them, and then I decided who I thought was much more, not serious, but had the integrity, who really wanted to tell the story. And it was the English producer, his name is Andy Harris. He was, and another advantage he had was he had just made The Queen. And I thought, wow, if you could handle that subject matter, the lady shouldn't be such a difficult task. So, and his wife, who was a novelist, was the one who wrote the screenplay, Rebecca Frake. They had been to Burma for their honeymoon, and you're talking about at least 10 years ago. So she had taken a long time to do research, and finally, after about 8 years, the script was written, and she was a first-time script writer. But they had so much potential in that script, but what I really loved about the script was it wasn't a political story. Sometimes I think, because when there are many political characters in our world where it's a very challenging, a very dramatic and tragic story to tell, because there's violence, scandals, there's heartbreak in there. But here in The Lady, it was really a love story. It should have been called The Lady and the Gentleman. And then especially love to do things that are new. I choose sometimes movies because of the location that they are going to take me to. I met with a very young, up-and-coming director at that time called SGIFF, and we did this movie called Farmers. And it was filmed in Svalbard, in the Arctic. So my agent was quite surprised that I said, no, I want to meet this director because, he had just done a short film and he had just done one movie, but he had come up with this story that was going to take place in the North Pole. And when I met him, I was very blown away by his passion and his intention of filming. Plus, I was going to spend a couple of months on an icebreaker. Now that is an adventure. So if you have any good ideas like that, I'm always open.